Hey everybody, Jim Williams here, back for more cash, as the old saying goes. Filling in for Scott Reichel. Now, Scott Reichel is filling in for
Chris King.
Chris King
So, yeah.
because you're sitting here going, "Wait a minute, this is Chris King show. He's not there." Well, you know what? He's on assignment. But for those of you who want Chris King, all you have to do is go to the show box. All of his picks are available right there. So go to the show box and you can connect with Mr. King. He shall be back next week. Meanwhile, we have a ace handicapper in his own right, Mr. Scott Rochelle. And Scott, it's good to be working with you. So actually, I think this is the first time we've actually had a chance to, do a show together, which is my pleasure.
Yeah, and I was going to say, forget about working together. It's nice to see you. It's been like a month or
Yeah,
so. So it's
I
nice.
know.
Hopefully, all's going well with you. Looking
It
forward to
is.
going through the Wednesday card. You got NFL up next, so you're kind of waiting for Thursday, but you still got to deal with Wednesday. I feel like everyone's kind of got one foot out the door already. But
Right.
should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. And on top of that, even though Chris is not here, we do have
Mhm.
content for you because I actually
Right.
made my own parlays. So we do have
I
parlays
know.
for all of you.
He does. And not only that, his own graphics. So is he not only talented as the expert as a handicapper, he's also a graphics man person as well. So, you're
I'd
getting
like
two
to
for the
shout
price of
out
one.
quickly a couple of high school teachers for forcing me to use Google PowerPoint. And that's really going to carry me through this entire show. So
There
I
you
am well
go.
versed in PowerPoint because I needed to be about,
Right.
I don't know, 7 years ago, and that kind of
Yeah.
carried over. So there you go. But
You know, all things come back to, to help, whenever it works like that. We talked about football. Tomorrow, of course, is the launch uh, of the Mike Tirico era on on NBC, as he will be joined by Chris Collingsworth, and they will begin their process of being the new Thursday night team. Shameless plug on my part. I did an interview with Tarico, and it's available tomorrow on sportstalkflorida.com. So if you want to read a little bit about what Mike thinks about this season and replacing Al Michaels, which actually surprisingly he did once before, because if you remember, Michaels left ABC in that trade for Oscar the Rabbit
mhm.
to go to NBC, and Mike stepped in and did Monday Night Football right after Al. So it's not the first time he's done it, and I don't think I think it'll be fine. I think that I have a theory, and this is funny coming from somebody in television. I really don't think people tune in to watch the announcers. Now, I think announcers can take a good game or a bad game and make it. They can take a bad game and make it better, and they can take a good game and make it worse. But I honestly don't think people tune in just to watch the announcers.
I
But
think that they used to, at
yeah,
least to a larger degree. And the
uh huh,
main reason involves availability. Because back in the day, before my time, or I kind of
hmm
grew up at the back stages of it, but I'm sure during your time, you only had like three channels, or at least three
hmm
main sports channels. There was
sure,
occasionally
yeah,
tape delay on there. So you
right,
kind of needed the announcers to be good because you didn't
hmm
really have a choice of what type of program you were going to watch if you were a sports fan. Then
right.
I grew up when ESPN was probably like 10 years old at that point. So you had
You were
more
probably
options.
watching my content on, on ESPN in those days.
Probably,
Um,
but the point
yeah,
is, you'd still kind of only had one choice of commentators when you were watching it
mhm,
live. Nowadays, you can find several different streams. You can find alternative streams. You can even
mhm,
find languages if you want to go to like ESPN Deportes or something like that. So the
right,
point is, you do have more options when it comes to watching events with different commentators.
right,
Now, once again, if you want to watch it in English, you probably only
mm,
have a couple to choose from. But I think announcers are less important because you can watch it on several different platforms. You
right.
can even go to Canadian broadcasts, and I'm sure they'll have
True.
different
Yeah,
commentators for you. So back then, that wasn't really an option. Now it is. So I do agree with you. But I
yeah.
do think announcers were extremely important back in the day, which is
Oh
why
yeah,
we still know and we still talk about Summerall and why we talk about
right,
Madden and all these guys. It's because for their
right.
era, they were basically arguably as important as the game itself.
Well, to your point, and good to see James and Andrew and Rye and um, Paul out there. Guys, tell us who your favorite broadcasters are. Baseball, football, whatever. When I was growing up, as you say, there was uh, Major League Baseball had one game, and that
Mhm.
was it. It was the game of the week. It was on Saturday, and you had either Joe Garagiola doing the game, or you had Kurt Gowdy going the game, and so that was that. You didn't have a lot of doubleheader football on Sunday. You basically had again Kurt Gowdy on the NBC side, and you had Summerall on the CBS side, and it took a while before you know that was it. But that was also the time when there was great radio announcers. And you grew up there as a Mets fan. One of my favorite people on the planet, Bob Murphy, was doing the games on the radio for the Mets.
I'm a
And
Yankees
Ralph
fan,
Kiner.
but close enough, you know.
Okay, Yankees. Sorry. All right. Well,
Close enough. All good.
you had one of my favorite people, Phil Rizzuto, on the
Yep.
broadcast. You had Bill White on the broadcast. You had a number Tim McCarver for many
Mhm.
years on the broadcast. So you had a bunch of different good Yankee broadcasters as well. So going all the way back to Mel Allen. So yeah, it was quite the interesting thing. John Kruk is a color guy. He's funny.
Yeah.
I've seen the Philly broadcast. He's John. Well, John has always been funny. It doesn't that part doesn't surprise me, but and he's a Philly guy, so it makes it even better from that
Well, are you a
standpoint.
fan of that? Are you a fan of broadcasters who are inherently biased during broadcasting, or do you prefer an unbiased approach?
Uh, if I'm the home broadcaster, in other words, if I'm doing the games and we're doing it for the Mets or the Yankees or whatever, I need a homer. Okay,
Okay.
I need somebody who is going to be. Think about it this way: you want a broadcaster who is honest. I mean, if the team screws up, you want them to say they screw up.
Also
But
passionate. I
yeah,
mean,
but you want them to feel as bad as you do when they lose,
mhm.
and as happy as you are when they win. And I think one of the guys who did that, and people never ever called him a homer, was Vin Scully. Vin was a great Dodger broadcaster. But if you would listen to Vin's games, it was all about the Dodgers. I mean, that was his stock and trade. He really loved and passionately sold the Dodgers, but he did it in such a nice, polite, and just easy tone way that it was good. So,
Yeah.
if I'm doing a local broadcast, absolutely I want a homer, an honest homer, but a homer nonetheless. When you watch a national game, I know that Joe Buck got a lot of grief and others, not just Joe, for quote unquote, being biased one side or the other. And if you look at the numbers, it's almost cut right down the side. If they were doing a Yankee Red Sox game, half the people would say, he's a Red Sox guy. The other half would say he's a Yankees guy. So when it's your team, you're colored in one way or another. But yeah, it's not as big now because hell, I barely know who's going to be broadcasting the game when I turn it on. So unless it's Sunday night or Monday night or one of the big nights. So anyway,
I
Jerry
think
Remy,
yeah.
that's a good call. Jerry Remy, Johnny Most, of course, with the Boston
There's one on the
Celtics.
top of my head that I could think of for being the most biased in baseball, and it's probably, Hawk for the White Sox
Oh
games.
yeah,
But I mean, he's not around anymore, but he was
right.
definitely one of the biggest homers you could find for sports
Well,
broadcasting.
that same town had Ernie, had of course uh, the the voice of the Cubs who was
Harry Carey?
Harry Carey. I mean,
Yep.
Harry was it, but you can put it on the board. That's
Yes. Yeah.
Hawk
Exactly.
Harrison, yeah. And Andrew
But
liked Rizzuto. I love Rizzuto too. And one real quick Rizzuto story, and then we'll get off to the other stuff. Um, and that is that Scooter used to take his headset off whenever there was a commercial break. And half the time he would sit back down and forget to put his headset back on. So Bill White would say, "Well, we're back here," and Scooter, and it's like you'd hear silence for a couple of seconds,
Because he'd
and
walk
then
outside and talk to the people.
oh yeah, he'd be outside. He'd be out there signing autographs, talking to people, having a hot dog. You know, eh, there used to be a thing, and it's true that when the traffic was bad and it was getting late at night and the game was going later than expected, Phil would actually leave the broadcast and drive home. So White would be there doing the game by himself, and Scooter would, beat the traffic to get home. So that happened. But again, when you're Rizzuto, you can get away with that kind of stuff.
I don't think you can get away with that now, but back then you probably
No,
could.
no, no.
But
AJS, holy cow. Yeah, here he carries holy cow. So anyway, there you go. All right, enough of that falderall. It's time for Mr. Rochelle to go to work. And what are some of the games you like tonight that aren't parlays? If you were just playing straight up games, what are some of the games you like?
Well, first of all, it is worth mentioning that a couple of baseball games that I might mention or might not is going to be in like an hour or so, because you
Mhm,
do have basically a lot of afternoon games, some doubleheaders sprinkled in there.
mhm,
You have one already underway. The Mets are up 5-0 against the Pirates. But to go through some plays or some games that I do like, was my play of the day last night, but I do have the Rockies' first five over two
mhm.
and a half runs against Lauer. We've seen it time and time again. Some pitchers are really good in some places and awful in
Right.
other places. And there's a lot of pitchers that are really, really bad in Coors Field. And Lauer is definitely one of them, because whether he was on the Brewers, whether he was on the Padres, he's faced the Rockies a couple of times. And
Mhm.
one constant, he's gotten shelled at Coors Field no matter what team he's pitched for. And in 5
Right.
career starts at Coors, 16 innings pitched, 14.63 ERA. He can't pitch at Coors Field. It's rough. It's really, really bad. He's also tied for the 4th most home runs allowed in the league.
Mhm.
If you want to talk about a dog, I don't mind the Rockies. I mean, the total on that one's about 11.5 or so. I just think that Lauer, who's an off-speed guy, and he's also a lefty, and the Rockies do pretty well against lefties, I think he's going to get shelled today. That's an afternoon game of 3. That was my favorite play on the card. But
Mhm.
I've never been to Coors Field. Maybe you have.
Yeah.
How noticeable is the altitude? At least as a fan, maybe not as a player.
Well, since I don't live there, it's noticeable.
Yeah.
What is also noticeable is the lack of humidity. And so that's part of what makes the ball carry. It's the lack of, obviously the altitude, but the other part is the lack of humidity.
Yeah.
So and I asked John Smoltz one time about it, and he said it affects pitching because there are things that you want a heavy ball, as he said,
There's less
which is
movement on some of the
right. There's
pitches.
less movement. If you're a sinker ball pitcher, you're dead, of course. That ball
Mhm.
is not going to sink. You cannot get it to sink. You literally have to throw it on the ground. It's just so as much as we talk about the batters, and the hitters getting an advantage, there's a disadvantage to playing in anywhere that you've got a lack of humidity and you got altitude. So
Mhm.
unless you're Max Scherzer or Joe DeGrom or somebody in the elite pitching area, where basically you could pitch on the moon and still get people out, that's that is a problem. Now, whether or not that's a contributing factor to why he can't throw it course, I don't know, but it is noticeable. That's for sure.
Yeah, but that was one game I was interested in. When it comes to games I'm
Hmm.
intrigued by but didn't bet on, I was kind of looking at that Twins-Yankees doubleheader.
Yeah.
Not really for the actual sides, but mostly for the totals.
Hmm.
7 and 6.5.
Ouch.
It's a pretty low group of totals there. Now the pitching
Hmm.
matchup's interesting in general. Game 1 is in about 50 minutes. You have
Hmm.
Varland, who's making his season debut,
Yeah.
against German, who's actually been pretty good. Yankees are minus 140, and then you have
Hmm.
Garrett Cole tonight at minus 205 against Ryan, who's actually been good for the Twins. But do I want to lay any big price with the Yankees when the team can hit? And if you looked at the lineup they're rolling out for game 1, it's really, really bad. Rizzo's now on the IL. They called up Guzman to play first base. They got Higashioka in the lineup. They got IKF. They're still. It's just not exactly a great lineup, but
Mhm.
for whatever reason, for the last 20-something years, the Twins can't beat the Yankees. They just can't do it. I don't know what it is. They just can't do it.
They are the gift that keeps on giving if you're a Yankees fan. And
It's literally
uh,
been 20-something years. It's
yeah,
just been the case. I don't know what it is, but
and Andrew brought up the point that Scherzer's out tonight. Now, um, when Scherzer was here in Washington, I was as big a fan as anybody. I mean, Max is a great guy to be around. He's a great guy to cover. He's a great guy to watch. I mean, he's one of those pitchers. Then there are very few, as I'm sure you know, Scott, that when they pitch, you kind of want to pay attention.
yeah.
Uh, the year he
DeGrom's
got,
number one on that list right now,
yeah,
but
yeah, but
Scherzer's
Scherzer,
top three.
yeah, and Scherzer's a throwback. I mean, he's like a Bob Gibson or somebody like that who just he wants to get everybody out, and he
Mhm.
shows it. He's much more emotional than DeGrom. I agree, DeGrom's a fantastic pitcher, but Scherzer is emotional. And if you notice when he got traded to the Dodgers from the Nationals, he had problems toward the end of the season and actually didn't pitch a couple of games in
Mhm.
the postseason. This is the time of year when, for whatever reason, Max begins to lose a little bit. Now you're still Max Scherzer and you're still going to win, but if this is a time when Scherzer's going to be a little less productive than normal, then that it's coming to that time. For some reason, and again, he's what 36, 37 years old.
Yeah, and Rye threw it
Um,
out there. He just got put on the IL, which is not surprising.
Oh, okay.
So,
So that makes it even tougher. But we wish him all the best. Max is a good guy, like I said, great pitcher. But this is a time of year when things, if they're going to go wrong for Max, they tend to go wrong.
and it's usually because he pitches so many innings that he usually has some type of arm
Yeah,
issue or leg issue because he's
right.
just out there for so long. And
Mm-hmm.
he throws every pitch, as you said before, because he tries to get everyone out. The
Mm-hmm.
amount of torque that he generates on every pitch,
Yeah.
and especially with the Nationals and the Dodgers, who's throwing 100-something pitches to start, you're
Mm-hmm.
not surprised eventually at the end of the year he showed signs of decline physically. He'd come
Right.
back, but he needed some time off. But yeah, it's the Mets are back on track against Pittsburgh in
Mm-hmm.
game one.
Mm-hmm.
DeGrom's pitching game two. We might talk about that game later.
Okay.
DeGrom, for me, is appointment viewing. I
Yeah.
think that if you are a fan of pitching, he's basically a must watch guy. You can
Mm-hmm.
argue that he's the most talented pitcher we've ever
Yeah.
seen because of the velocity, the changing of speeds, the
Mm-hmm.
spin rate, etc. Did
Right.
you have a favorite pitcher? It might have been different back then because you also said there was only like one baseball game back then.
Yeah.
Was there one pitcher that you went out of your way to watch as much as possible?
That's a good question. I mentioned Bob Gibson earlier. Um, for me, it was Juan Marichal,
Okay.
and as a kid. He was a guy who he had the very high leg kick.
Mhm.
He was it was nasty from a standpoint of he threw just about everything. I mean, he wasn't just a one
Yeah.
pitch
He had
pitcher.
like 5, 6 pitches.
Yeah, he was good. Then when the Braves had the big three, that was always fun too because they weren't fastball throwers. I mean, they actually were pitchers. They were guys that went from the black on one side to the black on the other of the plate, and so yeah, from that standpoint, that's it. Steve Carlton was always one. Tim McCarver had a great line about him, and that was it. When he retired, he said, when both of them pass away, he wants to be buried 60 feet 6 inches away from Carlton because that was the most enjoyment he ever had. So there you go. But yeah, there are more than a few. And right now, as I said, DeGrom is certainly on that list for me. Max is on that list for me, and you know. On occasion, if I get a chance, I'll check out Verlander because he's never a bad thing to watch as well.
Yeah, and Verlander's reinvented himself like 7 times, and he's still
And
successful every time.
I forgot one guy, and that's Otani.
Of
I'll watch
course.
Otani. I'll watch Otani because he's just a freak.
That's also
So
cheating because he also bats. So that's a little bit of
I know,
cheating, but that still
but I don't
counts.
care.
So yeah,
I don't care. He's you're watching Babe Ruth Jr. I mean, it's
yeah.
he's a freak, but he's fun to watch. Fernando Valenzuela was fun to watch. Like JC, that's a good point. He was fun to watch. Cole Hamels, yeah, when Cole was good, right? absolutely, 100%.
Rye's also very biased as a Phillies fan, so I'm surprised you didn't also throw in like Cliff Lee somewhere in there because of that World Series run.
Cliff Lee, that would have been
Solely
that'd
because
been tough.
Rye's a Phillies fan. Solely because that I
Okay.
figured one of my all-time favorite pitchers, who's a non-Yankee, passed
Yeah.
away a couple years ago. I always would try to watch Roy Halladay. Roy Halladay.
Oh yeah.
Would
Yeah.
always try to watch him. And I know he, of course, ended up winning a title with the Phillies as
Absolutely.
well. But he was also one of my all-time favorites.
Maddox, Levin, and Smoltz, those are the guys that Andrew brought up. Smoltz as a reliever was lights out and fun to watch. Eckersley was fun to watch as a reliever. If really go back in the day, and this is a shout out to our buddy Scott Steen, it was Roboski. Now Roboski with the Kansas City Royals, a good one. So absolutely, and from that standpoint, quick question on from a Yankee standpoint. Are you rooting to see Judge get past 61?
I feel like I kind of have to, right? I'm not going to deny any type of history that if I could witness it.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, my general standpoint, agree to disagree. I don't care about the steroids or not. I think Barry Bonds is the home run record holder. I watched Bonds. I think he's the best player in the history of the sport. And he's one of my favorite players in the history of the sport. But when it comes down to actual, I'd say just records in general, a lot of people have an asterisk. And as of right now, knock on wood, Maris is the guy who has the record with no strings attached, and that's legitimate. If Judge passes that, then some people, baseball purists, so to speak, will have Judge as the home run season king. So, of course, I'm rooting for it. The issue is he might want $500 million if he breaks it, but that's a separate can of worms there.
Right.
I have to root for it. I feel like there's no reason not to. Judge is a very likable guy. Even if you don't like the Yankees and he's the face of the Yankees, he's very likable. I don't think he has any enemies. He hasn't really acted up in games. I don't think he's ever been ejected.
No.
He has funny commercials. He's a face of the sport. I feel like most people, if not all, just genuinely like Judge because there's really nothing to hate about him besides playing for the Yankees. That's really it. So I'm rooting for it. You?
Well, yeah, I am too. And it's not to me. I'm not. When I said the 61, it wasn't really the 61 that I put an asterisk by because I agree with you. The steroids issue. I mean, there's different. There's a dead ball era. There's different eras in sports, and you just have to acknowledge it.
It's the Yankees' record worst case scenario.
But that's my question as a Yankee fan.
Yeah,
is that 61 has a special meaning to Yankee fans, and so
I was going to say it does. It does and it doesn't because a lot of the Yankee fans, at least my father or myself or whatever, they weren't around for Maris. So if you're talking to old timer Yankee fans, then Maris is a big deal. But when it comes down to people my age or even my father's age, I mean, the best Yankee hitter that we've had since then is what, like A-Rod or like Reggie Jackson for a couple years there? I mean...
Yeah, I would have said Reggie just because he was flamboyant and had a lot of style when he hit the home runs.
Maris is always kind of the forgotten guy, which sounds crazy because he has the record, but people always think of Mantle first.
Right. They even thought of Mantle. They even thought of Mantle whenever Maris won the record. There were guys pissed at them because Mantle, Maris at beating, that they wanted Mantle to be the guy that broke Ruth's record. So, but I was curious because it's a Yankee thing, and look, as you say, you brought up a very good point. Judge is such a likable guy. He's like, he's like 3 or 4 other guys, Trout in Anaheim, guys who you just like to watch them play. They enjoy playing. They sign autographs. They're good people. So, good on him if he can do it.
Yeah. And Ohtani's also a very likable guy.
Yeah.
I think Judge is liked more because there's always going to be some type of xenophobia involved where you kind of want the best players to be quote unquote home-born or home-bred. So I do think some people will try to discredit Ohtani no matter what he does. I think those people are morons. I think Ohtani's a phenomenal player, but I think you'd agree with me, especially in basketball. We saw it with like Gilbert Arenas' comments about Giannis And it seems like
Right.
people always try to roast Giannis or Jokic or
Right.
Doncic, and you're just like, what are you talking about? These guys can walk into 40 points any given game. They're
Right.
incredible. Why does it matter where they're from?
I don't know. And the funny thing is, to your point on that, is for many years, Dirk Nowitzki in Dallas was the face of the franchise, and
Oh,
nobody
this
had a problem
guy's
with
better
that.
than Dirk, and it's like, what are you
No,
talking
I
about? He's
I
won
understand. I'm
MVP.
just saying.
Yeah.
I'm
No, I
simply
agree.
saying
I'm
that
just touching upon it.
he got away from it. That
Yeah.
for some reason. Rye like Don Mattingly because he was the face of the Denny's Grand Slam breakfast.
I still think Mattingly
Good
is one
line.
of the most liked Yankees ever. And I mean
Mhm.
over world champions.
Right.
Mattingly, if you were asking most fans, that
Mhm.
probably grew up for, like, I'm not just saying during the Donnie baseball
Right.
era, but for a lot of eras of Yankee baseball. I'm assuming Mattingly's a top 5 Yankee on a lot of people's lists.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, he's it had it not been for George Brett, he probably would have won a couple of different batting well, and Boyd Boggs. I mean, those two guys were there, but you could roll Mattingly out there and he'd get a hit if he just rolled out of bed 20 minutes ago. I mean, he was just that quality of guy. So and
And it's
third,
unfortunate he
Andrew
retired, and
bring
they won
no,
the
it's just
World Series the year after he retired, which
right,
is
and Andrew
unfortunate.
brought up another guy who was a very well liked Yankee, and that's Thurman Munson, who unfortunately died in
Yeah.
a plane crash. But
Mhm.
absolutely. So anyway, favorite baseball players? Put them in your comments. We'll talk about them as we go along. All right, let's go for two for the money, my man.
Well, I was going to ask before we got into that, did you
Oh,
want to
go
do some
ahead.
housekeeping stuff or after?
Yes, that's a good point. Let's jump over and talk about. You know, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for our sponsor, and our sponsor is Caesar Sportsbook. They have a great deal for first-time users. Get up to $1,250 free bet insurance by downloading the app and being there to do basically be your first-time user. You got up to $1,200 in $1,250 in bet insurance. Download the app today. Always, folks, check the age limits. Plus, we are always saying, and we mean it, bet responsibly. Okay, don't bet the farm. That's something that's on another show for another day. But
Yeah.
by all means, that's it. And as we said one more time, you can get Chris King's premium bets every day. Check the link in the show box below, and it's opportunity to connect with Chris even though he's not here. So, all right, thanks for the heads up on the uh, sponsorship gig because that's always important. So, all right, so this floor, my friend, is yours, Mr. Rochelle.
So we're going to get into the actual parlays and pulling up the two for the money. These are my own, so I did not steal these from Chris. If you want his, you can buy his. But my top two team parlays. Sorry about the small font. We were kind of working some things out. First pick's going to be the Rays on the money line or -1.5 against the Red Sox. We know the Rays have been surging. They've been the hottest team in the American League for the last couple of weeks. Boston is still in free fall. And the one time they have a chance to win a game, they throw out Familia to pitch and they lose the game. So Boston isn't exactly playing
Right.
good baseball right now. On top of that, Bogart's multiple game hit streak officially was snapped, going for the
Mhm.
all-time record or franchise record yesterday. So the Rays are going to be the first one. You have Pivetta on the mound for Boston. I am not a Pivetta guy at all. It's mostly
Mhm.
just back in the current form of Tampa and looking at Tampa's record in the Trop. 46-24. That team is incredible at
Right.
home. And Boston 32-36 on the road, but Boston's definitely it's really tricky to stay motivated over the course of a season when you have a lot of veterans who have playoff experience.
Mhm.
If you have a young team, they're happy to be there. They might show up. Do you think
Right.
Boston's motivated at all? Because they know the season's over. They're just playing out the string at this point.
I don't think they are, and I think that you just brought up a point about the Rays at the Trop that's very important. The the Rays have 16 guys on injured reserve, okay? Um, including their best player and some of their best pitchers. But they got back to what you just mentioned, the Tampa Bay Rays. What made them good at what they do is they play fundamental baseball. They don't
Mhm.
make mistakes. They don't do something to screw up, and they take advantage of opportunities. They can go station to station. They can do whatever it takes to win, and God knows they win a lot of close 1 or 2 run ball games. And last night, it looked like for all the, as you said, for all the world that the Red Sox were going to, notch a win. All of a sudden, Jeurys Familia comes in, and when it's all over, you look at the scoreboard and the Rays have won.
Yeah.
Um,
And their
it's
bullpen has been incredible
Yeah,
recently,
yeah,
which helps. So
which doesn't hurt at all. So yeah, the Rays have been lights out, and the Red Sox have just been lights out for another reason. Angels and the Tigers. That's a good matchup for the Angels.
it is. If you look at the weather, there should be a lot of runs in that game. It's a middle afternoon game in LA. Wind
Mm-hmm.
and the overall humidity and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it should be pretty favorable towards runs. But you have Sandoval pitching against Hutchinson. Hutchinson, not a great pitcher, but for some reason gets a bunch of run support. But
Mm-hmm.
Sandoval's been very good recently, and going through the actual form of these teams, both teams aren't good by any means. But the Angels do have Trout back. Otani, of course, is still doing Otani things. So they have
Mm-hmm.
been better recently. The Tigers are just a total lost cause, and the Tigers are 34 games under. They're 24 under on the road. So they're especially atrocious on the highway. But the Angels had a nice win in extras yesterday. I
Mm-hmm.
just think that the Angels are the much better team. Sandoval's the better starting pitcher. I'll go with them as the second pick of that first two-teamer. Then moving
Mm-hmm.
on to the second one, Al is going to be very happy about this because I have a Yurfie. Between the Brewers and the Rockies, I have a run in
There
the
you
first
go.
inning there. Totals 12. You have Lauer, who I mentioned is well documented at being awful in cores, and you have
Right.
Freeland pitching, and Freeland's been terrible at home this season as well. So I do
Right.
expect to see some runs there. And then, well, you got to hold your nose because it's minus 365 on the money line, but I got DeGrom
Right.
against Oviedo because I kind of have to at this point. DeGrom is just so good. And Oviedo apparently has been scratched, so the Pirates have undecided listed. I love his work. I
Yeah.
think he's a very good pitcher. But I'm
Right.
going to go with DeGrom in that one. I just think that the Pirates, we know, can't exactly hit. DeGrom is incredible, and the Mets offense appears to have woken up in game one of this series, or game one today, I should say, of the doubleheader. So I'll go with the Mets there. Also, potentially taking the minus 1.5 at minus 200. It's juicy. I get it. But the Mets are the road team. They're
Yeah.
guaranteed 9 at bats. They might cash this run line, scoring 3 runs in the entire game. That's good enough for me. That'll be my second two-teamer. And to go through the actual payouts, this is
Mm-hmm.
including the $100 wager. But a
Right.
two-teamer, number one, pays out $234.45.
Mm-hmm.
The second two-teamer pays out $449.04, so a plus
Mm-hmm.
349 payout. And if you want to go through so that was actually the run line for the first two-teamer,
Right.
and for the second teamer, you have the money line, which bets which pay out $204.60, and the run line for the second two-teamer is $240.90. So those are going to be the two teamers. You have anything else you want to talk about, or should I just move on to the four
Well,
teamers?
tell you, let's pop up to that Milwaukee situation. It looks like Christian Yelich has come out of his shell,
Well, his
and
ball
which is
didn't
good news
land
for
yet
Mil.
from
Yeah,
yesterday.
yeah, which is good news for Milwaukee, bad news for Colorado. The Mets and the Pirates, keep an eye out for weather in Western Pennsylvania. It's raining, and there may or may not be a game there tonight. So keep an eye out for that one. But Scott, you nailed it on this, and that is the Pirates aren't hitting, and so if you're not hitting and you're facing Jacob DeGrom, that's not a good that's not a good combination under any circumstances. And as beautiful as PNC Park is, and it's one of the most beautiful parks in baseball, I think more people just come down there and watch the game to see DeGrom tonight because they're not coming to watch the Pirates win.
I have nothing more to add there. Pittsburgh fans that are showing up probably saw a spike in ticket prices tonight. It
Right.
wasn't because of the Pirates. Let's put it that way. So,
No.
of course, you could have the Mets bullpen get into some trouble, but with Pittsburgh having a really awful rotation and not having a listed starter, that means Pittsburgh might just be throwing somebody out there to get killed. I think the Mets win
Right.
comfortably, especially with the Braves breathing down their neck. These are two
Right.
games they need to have today. I think that
Yeah.
DeGrom delivers and the Mets end up winning. But moving on, by the way, I want to address
One
a
one
question
quick
here.
question.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say one quick question. Jr. Wanted to know about Pittsburgh total under.
So the first 5 team total is
Uh-huh.
over or under a half. Or in
Okay.
other words, can Pittsburgh score 1 run in the first 5 innings? I liked
Mm.
the over yesterday for the Marlins against Nola, and they got
Uh-huh.
there barely. They scored 1 run.
Right.
I'm not taking the over today. I'm not
Yeah.
sure they're going to touch a ball. You might see O'Neill Cruz maybe turn on one, but they
Right.
have no talent in that lineup. They have Reynolds, they have Cruz, and Cruz is still batting like 220, and
Right.
that's it. So, no, I think that DeGrom's going to be an absolute demon tonight. He'll probably
Mhm.
strike out 10 guys in 6 innings. I'd probably agree with you. I would lean to the under there, but
Mhm.
the Mets should win this game probably close to 5-0 if I was picking a
Mhm.
score 5-1. So I'll go with the team
Right.
total under there. I do want to address JC's question though. He was
Mhm.
asking me as a Yankees fan, what are my thoughts about A-Rod? I have nothing against A-Rod. In fact, I'm an
Mhm.
A-Rod fan. I feel like most Yankees fans should be a fan of A-Rod. Now, the
Yeah.
back end of the contract was rough. The steroid suspension was rough. I thought the Yankees ownership kind of also hung him out to dry at the way end. But the
Right.
Yankees only have a title in the 21st century, or in recent memory, because 2000, I
Right.
guess, counts. But
Yeah.
in 2009, they only have it because of A-Rod. A-Rod carried
Mm.
that entire team. He
Right.
also won the MVP a couple times. He was a phenomenal player.
Yeah.
I have nothing against A-Rod, and a lot of people don't like him because of steroids or whatever reason. The
Mhm.
2009 ring still seems real to me because that's the last ring we have.
Right.
So, as a Yankees fan that only remembers one championship, I was 3 years old in 2000, so I'm not going to count
Right.
that.
Right.
I'm a big A-Rod guy because he carried the entire team in 2009. That's good
One
enough
of
for me.
the other thing too is A-Rod got a bad rap because he was one of Scott Boras's first um, players. He signed with Texas
Yeah.
for, at that point in time, the most money that had ever been given a ball player. Um, and A-Rod, when he used to do Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, shared what I thought was a very interesting thing. And he said, had he to do it over again, meaning had he to, became a free agent and decided, okay, did he go for the money and not for what he wanted? He said, look, he says, "Y- there's there's money out there. There's always going to be money out there for top name players." He goes, he thinks that top name players should look around for the best fitting for them.
Mm,
And he said he didn't think about that as a kid. He thought about, look at all the money I'm going to get to go to Texas. When he got there, he realized that they didn't have any more money to spend on other players, so
yeah.
he didn't win anything.
It was him
So he
and
went,
what? Palmero? And
yeah,
that was basically it.
yeah, and Pudge Rodriguez at the
And
time.
Pudge. Yeah,
But
that's right.
yeah, so he had that, but you didn't have any pitching, you didn't have anything else. So yeah, I mean, he was one of these guys who, in retrospect, would say, you know what, to all of you guys out there who are going to sign these big deals, maybe you would go to some place where you actually like the people and actually might want win. So don't chase the check. Sometimes it's better to take a little less money and get what you want than spend 8 or 10 years of your career languishing in a place where you're not going to win. See Mike Trout.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right.
But yeah. Just
There
just
you
wanted to
go.
address that. I saw that,
Yeah.
but I'm an
Hmm.
A-Rod fan. I feel like most Yankees fans are. I can tell you right now, I guarantee you most San Francisco Giants fans don't care if Barry Bonds took steroids. That was probably the
No.
most entertaining time of their lives before they won
Yeah.
a couple titles. So fans are going to be biased. I understand if the general public doesn't like A-Rod because he got caught and lied about it several times.
Right.
As a Yankees fan, we won a title. That's all that matters to me.
One other thing to put a button on your point about Barry Bonds. Um, I get myself in trouble all the time about Baseball Writers Association, um, because it's like if you're not nice to them, they don't like you.
Yeah, and
And
Bond was
Barry
despised by the
Bonds
media entirely.
Bonds was one of those guys who didn't care and didn't want to talk to people and wasn't your buddy and wasn't any of those things that the Major League Baseball Writers Association wanted them to be. And so, they've held a grudge. I think all of those guys, Clemens, come on, all those guys. Bonds could have been a Hall of Famer without steroids.
Yeah.
Um, and all of these guys should be given, their due, and maybe they will eventually. But anyway, A-Rod was a fantastic player in my mind, and good on him for playing with the Yankees and being a Yankee fan. Getting the love from the Yankees because he deserved it.
Yeah. In my eyes, he did. So,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to touch upon that because I just saw that
No,
question
for
from
sure.
JC. But moving on to some of the other picks here, we do have 4 for the show. Full disclosure, we also do not have the shot in the dark. I wish I had the time and patience to sit through 17 player props and
Right.
pick my favorite 10. I didn't have the
Right.
patience for that, so we're just going to do
Right.
4 today.
Right.
First one, going back to Coors with the Brewers and the Rockies. I'm taking the over. I don't like either
Okay.
starting pitcher. The weather's going to favor the over. And yesterday we saw the Rockies score 9 runs in about the final 3 innings, including the 10th. We know that both bullpens are not exactly great. We saw Rogers blew another save, a league leading number of saves. So the bullpens are not great for either team. The offenses are decent. We know Coors definitely helps out the Rockies because for the 20th year in a row, they're a lot better at home than on the road in terms of scoring runs. So I expect to see a lot of runs in that game. I'll take the over there. Then I'll go to tennis, over for the U.S. Open, the primetime match between Alcaraz and Sinner. I'm going to take the over 3.5 sets at minus 210. They're basically the next great next-gen rivalry that should be around for a long time.
Yeah.
Sinner is 2-0 against him this season. However, each of the 2 meetings did go at least both each player won a set in each of the matches. So the point is, I think you'll see a long match, maybe going 5, but I'll take the over 3.5 sets there.
I think the last time they played, they went 5 sets.
The last time they played was Wimbledon, and Sinner won in 4. But they
Okay.
played previously, or they played after that maybe in Umag. I'm trying to remember the order. They went clay, and that went 3 out of 3. So the point is, you have a lot of ebbs and flows when they play against each other. I'm going to play that into my hand. I'm just going to take the over 3.5 sets and expect an up and down matchup for both players. Now moving on to baseball again, going with the Cardinals on the money line at minus 310 against the Nationals. You have Montgomery on the mound. Yankees great. Just kidding. Montgomery pitching for the Cardinals. He's been incredible ever since he showed up in St. Louis, and he's definitely been a big piece of that rotation. But to go through his recent performances in the past month, he's been Cy Young worthy in the past month.
Oh, he's amazing.
Last 5 starts, 31 and 2/3 innings pitched, 1.71 ERA. So he's been incredible. Cardinals had a nice win yesterday, and we know that.
He thinks he's Jacob deGrom.
It definitely seems that way. And you have Abbott pitching for the Nationals, who's bounced around a couple of times. It's not because he's good. 4.39 ERA. His ERA on the road this season, 8.22. He's not a good pitcher at all. He also does not give much length, and the Nationals bullpen is not good. I'll go with the Cardinals there. Also potentially on the run line at minus 142. And we're going to go international, and this match starts in about 15 minutes. You have Barcelona taking on Victoria Plzen. I believe that's how it's pronounced. I'm going to put you on the spot here, Chris. Do you know which country Victoria Plzen plays in?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, Jim, I'm going to ask you that.
I'm sorry, because you said Chris.
I said Chris. My bad. Force of habit. Yes, Jim,
I was looking
over.
I was looking
over
to see.
So, force of habit. Jim, do you know which country that team is from?
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say New Zealand.
They're from Czech Republic.
Well, there you go.
There you go. You were very, very close.
I was 5,000 miles away.
A couple time zones off, but I'm going to go with Barcelona first half team total over 1.5. For the overall game, they're minus 1,400. So they're expected to win by several goals. And Barcelona signed Lewandowski. They have a lot of offensive weapons. 1.5, I think I get the idea it's only 45 minutes for the half, but
Yeah.
I think Barcelona's probably up 2-0 or 3-0 at halftime. But minus 110 to expect the Barcelona team that has a lot of weapons against a defense that's going to be outmatched from start to finish. I think Barcelona should get to 2 or 3 in the first half. So that's going to be the last pick of the 4 pick. And to go through the actual payouts there, including the actual stake, a $100 bet on money lines would get you $696.84 in money back, so plus 596. And the run line on the Cardinals in that parlay would get you $897.92 from a $100 bet.
There you go. That's not a bad payout
Yep.
from that standpoint.
You don't have much
So
time to bet it, though, because the Brewers game and the soccer match both start in like 15 minutes. But
get to the window as quick
get
as
to the
possible.
window, but
Yeah.
I think that those are pretty solid plays for the prices.
Yeah. And have you been out to the Open yet?
This year I have
Yeah.
not. I have gone in the past. Truth
Mhm.
is, it was kind of a mix for me with the Open because, first of all, my favorite player right now is Djokovic.
Right.
He's not allowed to play, and I kind of
Right.
wanted to see him play. Second of all, I've been kind of sick for the past week or so I haven't been able to
Sorry.
go.
Yeah.
It's fine, getting through it. So I did not go this year. I have gone in the past. I recommend going if you have the chance. But I've been watching a lot of matches. It's been a great tournament. I saw the Kyrgios 5-set match yesterday,
Yeah.
which was a lot of fun. A lot of late night matches. But it's a very, very good experience. And I think this Alcaraz Sinner match should be very intense. I'd recommend watching that if you have nothing else to watch.
I got to say that I did the Open for USA for like 6 or 7 years. It is probably one of my favorite things to do, and I think if you get a chance and you happen to be in the New York area, um, it's you go out. The tennis center is such a fun place to be anyway.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much going on, and you just walk around and watch different matches, and you just it's a great place to spend a day. And if you get a chance to go out to the Open, it's a little pricey, but it's still it's worth the time. So if you get out there, take the 7 train and go out to Flushing, and you'll be fine. But
Yeah.
definitely a fun thing. And Barcelona, man, they just keep rolling out teams. I
I don't
mean,
know how they can afford anybody because they
yeah,
declared bankruptcy. They owe like $1 billion.
yeah,
And yet Lewandowski leaves from Bayern to Barcelona.
right,
Then it gets put on hold because they can't pay him. And
right.
now he's still playing. So I don't really know what's going on with Barcelona. All I
Pay
know is that they should
paying it
win this game
forward.
handily.
Yeah,
So I'll go with the team total over. I think they just come out and jump Victoria Plzen. I think
yeah.
they are up 2-3-0 at the half.
Well, the funny thing is that Barcelona always sells a lot of merch, so
Yeah.
maybe what they did is gave him a piece of the merch deal.
I
So
don't know
maybe
how
that's
well
what.
their merch is doing recently, though.
Yeah,
Lewandowski helps, but they always
yeah,
had Messi
right,
or
sure,
Neymar, Suarez,
right,
Ibrahimovic,
right,
Ronaldinho. You get a lot of
right,
internationally acclaimed guys that people
right,
would buy jerseys of.
hmm
Lewandowski's one of them, but
right,
I don't think it's the same merchandise-wise without Messi, right? Because Messi's
yeah,
probably the most bought jersey, or him and Ronaldo would
mhm,
go back and forth.
sure.
So that probably
Yeah,
took a bit of a bite out of their merchandising sales when he left. But,
you
you
could
know,
probably still buy a Messi Barcelona jersey, so you never know
yeah.
somewhere on the line. But yeah, that's pretty cool stuff. So 4 for the 14 parlay. You got all kinds of fun stuff out there. A little bit of everything. A little baseball, a little tennis, and a little soccer. Tomorrow, though, my man, it's going to be the NFL. Are you excited about that?
I think we have to be, right? I mean, people have been waiting for
Yeah.
this moment for a while. Preseason counts for bettors. It might not count for most people because not everyone bets preseason, but should be fun. We
Right.
got a really good game. Anytime the
Yeah.
defending champions play against the Super Bowl favorites in the first game of
Mhm.
the season, you should be entertained. So it should be a good
Oh,
time.
100%. And, are you buying that these are the 2 best teams in football?
The Bills, I am. I think the Bills are the best team in the league. and they're my pick to win the Super Bowl, which I'm really stepping out on a limb there, picking the favorites. I know, but I just think I think they're really really good from top to bottom. I don't think they have many flaws on their team. Early on, they might struggle because they are missing White, who's their best corner, who's coming
Right.
back from injury. So when he's healthy, the defense should step up. The Rams, it's usually difficult for a team to make it to back-to-back Super Bowls. Stafford has the elbow issue, which he's going to play through, but I am kind of concerned, at least to some degree,
Right.
when he's injured before he's played a game yet. I think that's a little bit concerning. They lost Von Miller. They lost some pieces. Odell's still injured. I don't know if he's technically on the team or not. I think he's technically a free agent, but or maybe he's signed, but of course he's still not going to play. They got
Right.
Allen Robinson, which helps, so they should be able to
Right.
make do. I think losing Von Miller is a big deal, though, because he was really, really crucial in that playoff run.
Right.
The NFC, though, pretty weak. Can we say that? Like, they have a couple of
Yeah.
good teams, not many great teams.
Yeah.
They can do it. I don't think they're going to make it back. But if I'm picking one team in this matchup to make it to the Super Bowl, I'm going to pick Buffalo because I think Buffalo from top to bottom is just an absolute unit.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, they've got pretty much the same team they had last year.
And they got
And
Von
they
Miller.
added, yeah, I was going to say, and they added Von Miller, so that's not a bad deal. So yeah, and you're right about that. I think it's fair to say the NFC is weak. I mean, look at the South. There's not the only quarterback who's back is Brady.
And Brady's went AWOL for 2 weeks.
Right. So you got that, and honest to God, I am sorry. Maybe I'm just I don't see. I don't see the Green Bay Packers as being the juggernaut that so many people seem to think they are.
Because they have no weapons.
I just don't. I mean, who's Aaron Rodgers throwing to?
You're going to have to rely on a lot of rookies
Yeah.
and about 2 weeks of Sammy Watkins, give or take. About
Yeah.
maybe 2 weeks. But
Yeah.
Minnesota is supposed to be a sleeper team. Chris and I still pick Green Bay to win the division because we think that their schedule is somewhat favorable. A lot of home games against good teams. Minnesota, I do think is going to make the playoffs, so I do kind of like that team as a whole. But anytime your quarterback's Kirk Cousins, you have a ceiling, and that ceiling is usually 10 wins.
And the East is a train wreck.
Yeah.
I mean, it is an absolute train wreck. Who knows?
I still pick the Eagles there. The Cowboys have too many injuries. They lost too many guys from the offseason. I'll go with the Eagles there. But we went through a lot of teams, and one of the favorites in the NFC has a brand new quarterback who's played 2 games in basically the last 2 years in Trey Lance.
Right.
Do I think he's going to be good? I don't know. Do I want to bet on them to make the Super Bowl with a quarterback I don't really trust? No. So you have a whole separate discussion there.
Yeah, I love Kyle Shanahan, but that's you're asking a lot in that situation. That's for damn sure. I do think the toughest division in football this year is going to be the AFC West.
Yeah, that division's an absolute I mean, they're going to kill each other. That's really rough.
How do people underrate the Chargers? I mean, I keep looking at that, and it's like everybody is talking Denver up, and I'm like, did you guys pay attention to what they did, with the Chargers?
I think it's based on coaching. After Staley's 4th down adventure for all of last year.
Okay, I get it.
People, I feel like, are going to automatically assume the Chargers will lose a game they should win because they'll turn it over in their own 30-yard line.
Right.
On paper, the Chargers, in my opinion, are the best team in the division. I don't think it's close. I think on paper, the Chargers might have the second best team in the league if you want to really go from top to bottom depth.
Sure.
But the Chargers are also well known across the NFL as being an organization that is unlucky. Let's put it that way. And it seems like things always snowball in the wrong direction for them.
The curse
of the Chargers. So people will wait and dare the Chargers to prove them wrong. But most people would rather bet on Russell Wilson or proven winners because the Chargers, historically speaking, seem to always implode when there's any expectations.
Quick question before we get out of here from Richie.
Not really a question. It's more just letting me know that Oviedo is going to be starting game 2.
Oh, I thought I saw that. I now see it's a 2. It looked like a question mark. Sorry.
Yeah, but Oviedo was initially, when I wrote up the parlays, he was the listed starter.
Mhm.
Then apparently it got pulled and he went back in. So Oviedo is going to start. He's not
Mhm.
very good, so I'll take DeGrom. But
It wouldn't matter.
no, it wouldn't
Okay.
matter at all. But
You could have one of the fielders pitch, and it wouldn't matter
yeah,
tonight.
if the Mets get to
So,
4, they'll probably cover the run line. So there you go.
yeah. Any
All
final
right.
thoughts before we get out of here?
Not really. Looking forward
Okay.
to a lot of good baseball action,
Yeah.
soccer, tennis. I kind of covered my thoughts
Yep.
on those.
Yeah.
But we got NFL coming up. College football was a lot of fun in week 1,
Hmm.
and it's football season. Get excited.
Get ready, get set, and we will go. And by the way, there's going to be new graphics. So for tomorrow night, brand new logo, new graphics, all that for NBC. So we will see all that fun stuff come tomorrow night because toe hits leather around 8:20 tomorrow night when they kick it off in Los Angeles at SoFi. So it'll be fun. Scotty and I will be back tomorrow, and I'm sure Scott will have some comments about tomorrow's game. So until then, my friends, it's been a pleasure. Class, I don't see any more. I don't see any more questions, and so pens down and away we go. Scotty, have a nice day. Thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure as always working with you, my friend.
Yep. And as always, as I like to wrap up the show, until next time, good luck to all of you and all your bets. Bye, everyone.
There you go. Bye.